Hi, we're here for another example of how to add additional documents. It's really important to be able to work on the whole family, not just one individual. The record hints are really good. They've got this high accuracy rating, but you still need to question things. You still need to look at things. You need to see the whole entire family all together. So to show you an example of this, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to come back to Elmina Porter. And you notice there's a record hint on this page, and I want to examine that. I want to look at her children. She's got James. He is very well documented with 28 sources. We've got Mary, who's got one source, and Joseph, who has one source. And then Martha, she's got 4 sources. I've looked at Martha's page and they are all marriage records. So now I want to look and see what this source is up here. Okay, it's showing the name of Porter, birthplace North Carolina, and the husband is J.W. Howie, and the daughter is Pattie Porter. You think, oh, this must be another daughter. I know Elmina had more children. Those actually showing on the census that we found. It's showing a death date, and she was 52 and she was widowed. Her birth year is estimated at 1872, and her father's name is J.W. Howie, mother's name is Porter. So as we look at this right down here, Martha was born in 1872. Now you might remember Martha Washington. Her nickname was Pattie. Pattie is a nickname for Martha back in that era of time. But I want to give a little more comfort level to make sure that I'm actually looking at the right individual. So I'm going to go to Martha's page and do a little search for her. I think that's probably her, but I want to look at it a little bit more closely. And one of the reasons I do is that it listed her married name as Porter. That's her mother's maiden name. Now it's very possible that she married one of her mother's relatives. But we're going to do a search from Family Search. And I'm finding right here that I can see, here's the marriage records right here that are attached to Martha. And as I click on this little pedigree link right here, it will show me this is attached to Martha Howie, and you can see her ID number is exactly the same as the ID number of the Martha Howie that we came from. So we know this record is attached to her, and these 4 are the same. Now it comes down here and it will show us Martha Howie, and we think, okay, well, we want to find her as a married woman. So we're going to look up here and try the name of Porter and see what comes up. Sometimes you have to prove it wrong or prove it right to see what comes up. So I'm going to update that now and see how that changes my search. And so I want just another example of changing something up here because I didn't see what I was hoping to see right off. I'm going to put a wildcard right there. So we know we're looking for Martha Porter, and we know the nickname was, well, let's just try it with that at first and see what happens. Okay, so now let's try it with her nickname of Pattie and see what other records might come up. We just want to get a little bit more familiarity, searching around, searching on all family members. So now we have changed the search to update on Pattie, and it's still coming up with some Marthas here. And we know that marriage record had listed her husband as J.M. Porter. Let's look at this. It says this is a census record in 1920. So here we have Pattie Porter, and she's living in the right location. She is 48 and she's widowed, and her birth year is estimated 1872. And she's the head of household living with Mary and Frank Porter. So now as we look at that specifically, I think, okay, well, maybe one of her children were an informant on that death record. If that's the case, that would give me an additional link. Here she's 48 in this death record. that we had found on her mother's page, she was listed as having been widowed. So let's look at this death record again. We're going to look at that image and see what it exactly says on it. So we're going to blow that up so we can read it. So it says Mrs. Pattie Porter, and so she did marry J.M. Porter, so that would be correct, even though it felt funny that it was her mother's last name. She's female, white, she's widowed, and she's 52 years old. And as we look down here, we'll see Frank Porter was the informant. And so that is listed as her son in the 1920 census. Also here, the name of the father is J.W. Howie, and the mother is Porter. The maiden name of the mother is Porter. So now we know that really is a record of her, and we can go ahead and attach that to the mother, and at the same time we'll attach it to the daughter. So let's go ahead and look at that, and we see this shows the death of Martha, who was nicknamed Pattie and married J.M. Porter with a son, Frank Porter, who is listed as the informant on the death certificate. Okay, so now I've given myself enough information to really remember who that is. And so this shows the death of Martha. Those are her parents. And here I'm going to have to drag that down. See how that didn't happen to match up because of the names? So I'm going to drag it down. We know Pattie is Martha. That's the same birth there, the same birth date. So now I'm going to replace the death information, and it also takes over the burial information right here and the location. And so I want to standardize that. I noticed that didn't come up as standardized. So North Carolina, and I will standardize that right there as March. Always click on that little calendar thing. This for some reason did not standardize. So I'm going to click that and the CH. Okay, so now that is standardized, and I'm going to attach it there to Martha. Nickname of Pattie. Okay, so now as I come to Pattie's page right here, I can look additionally. That was the certificate we just looked at, and this was Pattie Porter with Mary and Frank. So this is something now that I can attach to Martha's page. So I need to make sure that I am on Martha's page over here on the right, left, going to Martha, come back to her page, and I did a search and realized, okay, that is her. I can review and attach. Notice something that this is telling us. So in 1920, Pattie is the head of household. That tells us that J.M., her husband, died before 1920 because she's listed as a widow. So I can add her residence right there and say this shows the Pattie, I think I'll put her full name here, Porter family in 1920. Now I can add two children that I did not have in the tree before. This is going to pre-fill in their name, the birth date, a birth location, which is the United States. I can click standard. They're deceased. I don't have a death date for them. It adds their relationships there and create a new person. So now the first part was to create a new person, and now I'm going to attach this record to that person. It's like a two-step process. So now I get to add her son, Frank. And Frank Porter, there's his date of birth. It's North Carolina, United States. I click on the standard and he's deceased, and I'm going to create a new person. Now when I attach this record, I'm also going to make a note right here that actually I think Frank's father was already deceased. I could have put this in the beginning, prior to 1920. But at least I put that memory note there on that one, and I can come back here